Thanks for coming out, everyone. This is a story that really captivated the market, I think, in a significant way last year. And all I can say is right now it's great timing to be back in the story. We had a very frothy response to our discovery last year, ran very high and strong, and melted down, as is often the way. But right now, we have a legitimate discovery that's got considerable scale potential, and I'll walk you through that. You've all seen this sort of thing, so I won't bore you with the details. I think it's important to emphasize right at the outset that we had two key discoveries last year. It was perceived as one, but largely lost on the market because it happened right at the close of the year, was the potential discovery of the source for the entire system. So just to give you a bit of backstory, we didn't know about all this pretty color here at the beginning of the summer. That's geophysics. What we drilled was the geochemistry, an anomaly that we had developed over a number of years as a private company. We drilled that, and it gave us these high-grade vein zones on the west side of the image here. We had no concept of the geophysical response. We started the geophysics about the same time we started to drill, and we only did half this image. We did this half here. We knew at Saddle North we had an open anomaly to the east, but it wasn't until late August that we went back and extended the geophysics, and this turned up. And we weren't very keen on that target, which we call Saddle North. It's now believed to be the intrusive center for the whole system. We weren't nuts on it because the key to success on this play to date has been geochemistry, and that's what we drilled over here. This is dead geochemically. It's very interesting. Dead on top, I have to qualify. So what turns out is there's a lot of glacial debris in the valley bottom there that's been bulldozed on top of it, and it's blind. So that's an unfolding porphyry discovery. I don't know if you've been up to northwestern BC. It's the Golden Triangle, so-called. This is our property here in orange. A couple of things to emphasize. We've got a paved highway up the east side here, and that's a super heavy-duty power line to the Red Chris mine. Saddle, our principal target, is up there, and we have another unfolding target called Pass, which has similarities in the early going to Saddle. I would emphasize Red Chris for any of you who don't know that mine. On the right is the Red Chris mine. This was, it's operated currently by Imperial Metals. They mine just the upper portion of the deposit there. Why it's relevant, it's about 11, 12 kilometers from us as the crow flies. That upper portion of the deposit was known back into the late 80s. What they didn't realize was it was much richer below it, and they really got stuck into drilling the deep potential at Red Chris in the 2000s. And I would argue that between 2008 and 2014 approximately, Imperial Metals went from $1 to over $18 as they put out a whole series of deep high-grade intercepts that were really rich for a porphyry, and also started to work toward building the mine. But the point is, that's probably the richest, ultimately going to be the richest porphyry copper gold deposit in Canada. And it's possible that we have another one. Saddle consists of two discoveries, right? We've got Saddle North and Saddle South. Saddle South is where we commenced drilling. You can see it's largely a grass-topped ridge. Access is going to be very easy. It's just 10 kilometers up that gentle mountain valley to potentially put a road in here. Saddle North, the porphyry target, is in the valley bottom. And a key part, the reason the market got so excited last year was there was not a single historical rock or soil sample or drill hole on this entire discovery area. It was virgin from that standpoint. That relates to the mineralization on this property. It's a very sulfide-rich, quartz-poor, carbonate-rich system, and if you add water to the sulfide, it eats away the vein systems, and you have nothing left to see on surface. So a lot of well-known geologists and explorationists traditionally or historically hiked up these valleys, and they missed it because basically there was nothing to see. Again, it was a geochemistry play. So I mentioned We did several thousand soil geochemical samples over the course between 2013 and 14. This is the result of it here. The dark purple is all material that's greater than half a gram in soils. And we drilled the geochemistry last summer using an RC drill. This is where we chose to focus. It's just, we call this the Saddle South west side. That's about 550 meters east-west there. It's a zone now that's dense with high-grade mineralization. I can tell you it's shaping up as a potential open pit with a high-grade operation conceivably below that. These drill holes are about 50 meters spacing, and you can see there's a great pile of glacial debris here on the left. That's in the valley bottom, and this is on the tableland here. This is how it looks in plan view. I'll show you a couple of sections. Blue is the silver, and the other purple color is the gold. About 550 meters. We drill north-south, south to north as well, depending. This is a long section. People are often concerned about continuity. I can tell you we've done a huge amount of modeling work with our data. We have really good continuity down plunge. This is actually about 400 meters here, and that's actually that section on the previous image. I'll back up here. That's from here to there, the next long section. And we're getting broad zones, underground style zones. We plot this using a combination of grade and alteration. We've been doing a lot of lithogeochemistry, so we have a really good handle on where these zones are going. And I can tell you, the whole package runs. It doesn't just run in the color. That's the better portions of it. It runs between as well. So continuity is great, and this whole thing is open. I have to emphasize there's some rumors floating around out there that Saddle South is not open. It's open to depth. We've drilled it to over 550 meters. It's open down plunge. It's open south. There's a lot of potential upside. This is roughly what it looks like. I won't bore you with all the numbers. It runs between all of these zones, these veins, and there's a multiplicity of these sulfide-rich veins. This would really be sort of transitional, low sulfidation, where I'll come back to that in a minute, but the pattern of results, you can study this later yourself, whether it was from our first holes. These are core holes on the right and RC on the left. We drilled about 58 holes here at Saddle South on the west portion. This hole 59 is on the east side. And there's a consistency to these results, a lot of high-grade vein results, and the package overall is looking very encouraging. Blue sky, there is lots of it, and again, this is just Saddle South. We have the zone we focused on drilling last year called the west side. We put our first test holes here on the east side. The topography is very steep there, and we chose to avoid drilling it in the early going, but it's got really strong geochemistry here. And our first hole here, 59, drilled over 6 meters, or about 6 meters of over 12 grams per ton. There's a lot of potential to add ounces here, and we believe it connects up with the west zone, but at a deeper level. We can see it in the geophysics that we did. Open far over here as well to the west, south. These are all new hits well below the glacial debris to the south. This was what we call the Saddle South east side. Again, that's the image I was just pointing you to. Again, we've had some really nice, it's just our first hole, and the system is there. This is missing a couple of photos, but maybe they'll show up on the next one. I mentioned it's a quartz carbonate sulfide vein system that we have here. Epithermal style. We've got breccias. Some of these are massive. Some of them are semi-massive. It's trying to show. There you go. We have thin vein style and a number of interesting different styles there. I've already talked to some degree about this. On this image, just to discuss it again, the color is the IP chargeability, and those lines are not topography. We flew a detailed airborne heli-mag on this in September. So That's the magnetics coincident with that beautiful chargeability high, and it turns out that that is a monzonite intrusive that's mineralized with a lot of magnetite and everything else. That's our first test hole. That's 1,000 meters east from that hole 64. We got what I'd call relatively rich porphyry style in that. And again, the epithermal system is all over on this end. So it appears actually with what we have here at Saddle South and North, that's the intrusive engine. We have the outlying epithermal, and about halfway along here in these holes, especially that one, you've actually got the epithermal apparently collapsed on top of the porphyry, which is quite interesting. So we drilled, our first hole was, we left, as I mentioned, this drilling right to the end of the season because it had a very soft geochemical footprint. That's hole 64, the last hole of the season. That was 62, so close to the last. This what we got in 62, which we just put right down. We went through dead overburden, and then the hole, it's got a very consistent porphyry signature, and it just steadily strengthens with depth. This is not ore grade, the top 210 meters here. It is, by the time you get to the bottom, it gets into typical BC style. What we're speculating is that it's probably the next couple of 100 meters down where we really want to be. And so we're going to be following up on this hole, among others, as a priority, obviously. This hole, 64, was 1,000 meters west, and we got the porphyry again. These are sheeted quartz veins in the porphyry. And you get this sort of number, you know, 18 meters of a gram. It's got a lot of silver, gold, and copper. On the shorter interval, you're up to, you know, rich porphyry-style intercepts. But that just tells us that at least on the periphery, it can be rich. It's a huge target. We'll see what unfolds with the summer program. We have a really great relationship with the Tahltan. If there's one group in BC you want to be associated with, it's in fact the Tahltan. They're the biggest single landholders in British Columbia. They're very keen to encourage mining development, and they're structuring their society in that direction. They'll tell you happily that we're a mining band. They used to mine obsidian from Mount Ziza and export it to the other First Nations all over the continent in previous times. We've done our metallurgy. This was a worry to some people, right? Oh, you've got a lot of sulfide. Metallurgy is bad. It's not. It's good. Very good, actually. So we'll wrap. So I'll wrap this up, I guess, Matt. Am I pretty well done?
Yeah, you got a couple minutes for questions.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask, can you highlight your plan for 2018?
Yeah. Well, that's the plan there, basically, and we're going to obviously continue on the expansion drilling. It's looking very substantial here. We've got high grade, high grade, high grade, and then we have the porphyry, and I might emphasize the porphyry could also have high grade associated with it. So this program this summer will be about 18,000 meters of drilling. With about 18,000 meters, we're not sure the number of holes yet. It would cost about $6 million. This is in part why we've recently announced a financing just the other day. We've basically sealed that financing now with the participation of some major European institutions. Ross Beatty has always been a very big shareholder, and he's bought a lot of this in the latest offer. Ron Nedolitsky and those guys too. They see what we have here, and it doesn't matter what the stock is doing. It's a very real and exciting discovery, this one. So we have about 82 million shares out. We've got, even prior to the current financing, $3 million, plus quite a bit of in-the-money warrant to come. It's a great positioning. You can see where we are at the minute. I'd argue you want to be in it now. That's all I have to say, but I'll happily take a few questions. Thank you.